Simply the best.
Glasses.
That's fine.
Ah, here
Yes.
Yeah, Chris is about to train them.
Okay, we are going to start the meeting here
Stand.
momentarily as soon as we get Commissioner Lathrop and our council here.
We can get him in here.
It's all right.
Hey, Bob.
Good move. All right, welcome
I
everyone.
don't know where I've seen it before, but someone else I know has one of those. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Welcome everyone. This is the Grand Traverse County Resource Management Administration Committee meeting. Today is Wednesday, October 8th, 2014. It is slightly after 6 p.m. We're at the chambers, Commission chambers on the second floor of the Governmental Center at 400 Boardman, Traverse City, Michigan. We will call this meeting to order. We will open with the opening ceremonies, and that would be the pledge by Commissioner Max Bauer.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call attendance, please.
Rennie?
Present.
Thomas?
Yep.
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am.
Lemkool?
Yep.
Max Bauer?
Here.
Lathrop?
Yes.
Inman?
Here. Okay. Next is the approval of the September 10th, 2014 minutes of the RMA Committee.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move to approve the minutes as provided.
Okay, there's moved by Commissioner Wheelock, seconded by Commissioner Max Bauer. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. We now move on to item 4, which is our first public comment, and if we could have the clerk read the guidelines for public comment.
Any person shall be permitted to address a meeting of the Board of Commissioners which is required to be open to the public under the provisions of the Michigan Open Meetings Act. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. Any person wishing to address the board shall state his or her name and address. No person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding time needed to answer commissioners' questions, if any. The chairperson shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. The chairperson may, at his or her discretion, extend the amount of time any person is allowed to speak. Public comment will be solicited during 2 public comment periods noted in Rule 5.4 Orders of Business. However, public comment will generally be received at any time during the meeting regarding a specific topic currently under discussion by the board. Members of the public wishing to comment should raise their hand or pass a note to the clerk in order to be recognized and shall not address the board until called upon by the chairperson.
Thank you. Okay, you've heard the general guidelines regarding the first public comment, so we will open that up. Does any member of the public wish to speak at this time? Lisa, come on up. Get yourself introduced. Welcome.
Hi, Lisa Leedy, Village President, Fife Lake, 616 Bates Street. And good to see you all tonight. I haven't given you an update in a while, so I'm going to give you a speed update of what's going on in Fife Lake. You should be reading in the paper any day now that the Fife Lake Area Utility Authority has received a USDA grant and loan combination. The total project is a $6.5 million project. We received nearly $3 million in grant funding for that project. That is of the $7 million, it was through the, I think $7.5 million was issued through the whole state. We got $6.5 million of that. So that's a pretty significant project. That will be upgrading all the moving parts on our system and lagoon requirements, upgrade requirements that we have. We also just found out we are a recipient of the SAW grant of $170,000 for stormwater asset management. We just got a grant from the Council of Governments for a dock extension for our new dock. We just finished our RR&I project for the road Pierce Street project, and we were under our budgeted amount, so the DEQ was mandating we fix an adjacent small road next to a lake, and we were able to fix both roads and only spend about $6,000 of village money. So the rest was grant funded. I just got my DNR Trust grant scores back for my bathrooms and pavilion in the park and the handicap access. They knocked some things off the project that they didn't feel should be in the project. So it's about a $300,000 project, and I've got my preliminary score, and I have to come back with some more information. So I'm still in the running, but we'll see. On October 11th, which is a Saturday, the steam train color tour is coming from Petoskey to Fife Lake for a 3-hour dance around Fife Lake. And while they are hanging around Fife Lake, people can come take the train for an hour in Fife Lake around the area. On October 18th, the Scarecrow Festival is going on in Fife Lake, which is a family-oriented Halloween-themed party. We have sled dog races coming, wheeled sled dog races coming to Cherry Raceway on November 8th and 9th. And we have sled dog races on the snow, hopefully, on February 21st, I believe it is. We also have an ice fishing derby, our annual ice fishing derby scheduled for February 14th. So that's all that's going on in Fife Lake. Do you have any questions?
Not much going on.
Not at all.
Wow.
I do have a question. Lisa,
Sure.
what do you do in your spare time?
I know, right? I have a pile of kids this side, and I have a paying job too. So, no, I just thought I'd give you a quick update on what's
Well,
happening.
we appreciate you coming in to do that.
All right.
Wonderful accomplishments.
Thank you.
Thank you, great job. All right, anyone else of the public wish to speak at this time? Seeing none, we will close the first public comment. We will move on to the approval of the agenda. We have, as far as I know, no additions to the agenda,
That's correct.
so we need a motion to approve the agenda. Moved by Commissioner Rennie, seconded by Commissioner Wheelock to approve the agenda as presented. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. We now move on to the consent calendar. If the clerk could read the consent calendar, please.
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted, receive and file, or approval is approved by a single committee action adopting the consent calendar. All information identified on the consent calendar can be viewed in its entirety at www.grandtraverse.org. A. Receive and file. 1. Resource Recovery Manager's Report. 2. Road Commission Monthly Report.
Okay, so we have read the consent calendar. Does any member of the public wish to pull an item from the consent calendar for further discussion? Seeing none, we will now move to the county commission. Any member want to pull an item for discussion? Commissioner Rennie.
A1 and 2,
Okay, that makes that good.
number 6, sorry.
A1 and 2?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. So we will pull those items, and so there's really nothing to vote on for the consent calendar. So we will move on to special orders of business, and we'll attend to those two items in item 8. Special orders of business is the public hearing for the revolving loan fund application for Creekside Clinic. And John's going to take care of that?
handle
John,
that.
if you come on out. Get yourself introduced.
Good evening, John Syke, Planning and Development Director for Grand Traverse County. And also with me this evening is Laura Galbraith from the Chamber of Commerce. What I just want to do is kind of give you an overview, because this is a program that used to be housed at Grand Traverse County. It's now part of a regional revolving loan fund that is administered by the Chamber here in Traverse City. This is a first application, and the process is a little bit different, but before I mention what that process is, I just want to mention what the application is. It's a application from Creekside Clinic, which is submitting the application for a loan through the regional revolving loan fund in the amount of $490,000. The loan will be used to hire up to 14 full-time positions over the course of 2 years, of which at least 51% of these people will be available to low to moderate income individuals for these positions. So details of the actual loan is to finance examine room furnishings, hire 14 positions. 2 positions will be additional doctors to serve the outlying clinics, but the remaining positions will include staff support or support staff of each of those clinics. The majority of the support staff positions will fall within the category of the low to moderate income requirements. They will also be used for purchasing required technology for to support this expansion, and then the purchase of additional inventory of medical supplies and medicine. And it will also finance receivables. Each new doctor experiences about a 6-month lag on receipts from the start date to steady monthly receipts due to credentialing process with each payer. In the process which we start with this public hearing that's conducted tonight. There is a 15-day public comment period that will commence starting tomorrow. After that, there is the application is finalized and for submission. There is a requirement also. There's actually a loan committee that is housed at the chamber that reviews it. We have representation from that. Dave Benda is your representative, and he will be part of that loan committee. That's the committee that actually approves it locally. There is also a two-part application. The chairman of the county board was one of the signatures on that part one application. There will also be a second part of that application that will require a signature of the chair. There's also a authorizing resolution that comes after that 15-day comment period that will be presented to you. So I anticipate that coming to you at your regular meeting on October 29th of this month. And that authorizing resolution is really to ensure that the requirements of the Community Development Block Grant requirements have been adhered to in terms of what the purpose of the project is, the funds that are going to the project, that the 51% requirement for the low to moderate income requirements are met, and that it essentially authorizes that submission of the application forward to the state of Michigan.
All right. Anyone have any questions for John? Okay, we would like to, now that you've got an overview on that, we'd like to open up a public hearing for revolving loan fund application for Creekside Clinic. This is a public hearing only, and there will be no board action required at this time. So we will open up the public hearing. Any members of the public wish to speak on this matter? Okay, we will close the public hearing. Does any commissioner wish to speak on this matter? Commissioner Rennie.
I'd like to speak to, is it Laura? I have a couple of questions for you.
Get yourself introduced.
Sure. Hi, I'm Laura Galbraith with the Traverse City Area Chamber. I'm the Senior Vice President of Finance.
Thanks. My question has to do with your memo that's attached to our packet here. We're talking about community grant, or community block development grants. I'm going to read through a couple spots and see what your take on it is. It says two
Sure.
positions will be additional doctors to serve the outlying clinics. Excuse me, wrong one. The majority of support for staff positions will fall in the category of low to moderate income. And you got in brackets $98,000. What's that mean?
We had identified for the $490,000 the 5 different areas that they were going to be using the money for. So the $98,000 is to hire those, the cost of hiring those positions, training those positions, and so that the 14 positions equals.
That's not their pay, in other words. That wouldn't be their income or something.
No, no.
Another question. Financing receivables. Each new doctor experiences about a 6-month lag on receipts from start date to steady monthly receipts due to processing. You want to finance this up to $200,000 for these doctors, this lag. Why is that?
Because the program is to help businesses so that they can grow within our community and be able to offer positions to individuals to have employment opportunities. So when we sat down with this particular company and looked at what they wanted to accomplish, to be able to hire more people and to be able to make their business successful, this was an area that this particular industry struggles with. And so they have a credentialing process for each of their new doctors. The different companies that they work with would be the healthcare providers, so Blue Cross, Priority Health, Medicare, Medicaid, so on and so forth. So it does take a little bit of time for them to be able to go through their process of being qualified and then be able to get them the money paid back to that particular doctor. We do find that to be, through this program, to be an acceptable use of CDBG funds, and it is an acceptable use for us to be able to loan money to a business in that regard. It's just a true business expense for that particular industry, and it seemed to qualify.
So you say there are other areas and other grants that you would finance receivables, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, another question. What happens if there's a contentious claim and it's not accepted, for example, and you've already given this doctor expenses? What do you do?
Well, the business also has other sources of income, and so, you know, we're not going to be involved in their day-to-day operations. But when we look at this from a loan committee perspective, we're looking if they're able to pay back the debt. And so that's what the finance committee is doing as we speak.
Okay, Commissioner Wheelock.
Laura, what's the payback time frame on this loan?
So for permanent working capital, the MEDC does require, excuse me, the MEDC requires that 5 years is the longest you can go for a term loan, but then you can extend the amortization. And so right now, we are working with loan committee for this to be a 5-year term loan.
Okay. Anyone else have questions? Dr. Lether.
If the loan gets defaulted and this board is involved in it, are we responsible for any part of that?
Excuse me. The way that the program works is the subrecipient agreement that the Grand Traverse County had entered into ultimately is responsible for the funds. However, this program is really meant for CDBG to be looking at the national objective. That's the main requirement. That's the main lens that they're looking at with this program. So if for some reason something were to happen, and keep in mind that when we loan the money to the business, our organization is responsible to meet with these companies on a quarterly basis and monitor their financial statements. So if there were an issue, we would address it much earlier in that process. We would also be meeting with them with MEDC representatives, and then once a year we would be meeting with them from HUD. So there is a lot of due diligence in between. But if something were to happen down the road and this company was not able to pay back the loan, there are ways for MEDC to work with us on working out the loan, and there are also ways for us to go back to HUD and show that we had followed through with our requirement, and that would be that we met the national job objective, that when loan committee met, that they really looked at all of the areas of focus, which is this financially feasible? Is this meeting the national objective? And if that were the case, then we could go back to HUD and ask them to forgive the loan. Now, this is not 100%, but this is the way that the program operates.
But the bottom line is, all
Bottom
said
line
and
is-
done, we're responsible. This county, this board.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. How much money is it?
$490,000.
Okay, thank you.
Herb.
I think it's important to note that this is money that's been sitting in our coffers for almost 5 years, that has been doing absolutely nothing for our community for economic development. And the best way that we could get this done is by turning this over to the chamber. So this is money that's been sitting in an account, and we've got to do something to get it out. And the chamber is doing a great job in starting to get more businesses to understand that they can come in and borrow money for, and it's a little more on the risky side. And that's what it's for. So, you know, if you say the county's on the lam, well, we had, I think, $1.3 million in that account that's been sitting there. So that's only part that we would have to be responsible for, is that money that's already been turned over.
Just to clarify that, Herb, that is money that was originally given to us by the state, not
Right.
by our local taxpayers
Right.
or anything general fund money. And we've been fairly, I think Commissioner Wheelock will probably be better explaining this, but we've been very successful in terms of the default rate and the recapturing of interest and keeping that fund building and going. And unfortunately, there just hasn't been enough applications to fill and get that fund going and operating like it should be. But it's not like the county's taken our general fund money or tax revenue locally here and have put money into that fund. That money we received from the state of Michigan many, many years ago as seed money, risk money for economic development to help businesses to kick off and expand, just to clarify. Okay. Go ahead, Doctor.
So if the $400,000 wasn't paid back, we take the money out of that fund to pay it? The fund
Yeah.
you're talking
Yes.
about?
Right. I mean, it's money that's been sitting there.
Yeah, but it's still going to sit there unless they don't pay, right?
Well, yeah, but, and then they can re-loan it as money comes in.
Correct.
They can go back out and re-loan that to other businesses. And so it's a revolving loan fund is what's been set up.
It's not truly money that would have to be paid back as far as for the county to pay it back. It's just that the revolving loan fund would be short that $490,000 or some percentage of that. That is money that we started, Larry's right, we started with seed money. We've invested it in businesses throughout our community. Many of those businesses paid back well in advance of the time they were supposed to, so we also received interest on that money. So that initial amount of money has been able to grow and been available for economic development in our community. And what's happened, right, wrong, or indifferent with this regionalization in the Chamber Foundation is trying to find a better way to market that money. It is gap financing. You know, I don't know any other way to really describe it. It's gap financing that's available for businesses where they could not go to a conventional bank and borrow that money for this type of the project or this portion of the project. The project's going to move forward. You know, in most of these cases, the project's going to move forward. But what the EDC loan is able to do is provide some gap funding to deal with issues like the receivables for a period of time, inventory that has to be purchased in order to make it move. That gap funding, those are items that you normally can't finance through a bank or a financial institution. The gap funding that's provided through the EDC is money that's available to those businesses, for the startup businesses, to get up and running, and then they pay it back to us. Fortunately, I think in probably 25 years we've been doing this locally, and I think if I can remember, I think we've only had 3 businesses that have defaulted in all of the projects that we've done. You know, most of them have been paid back in full and well ahead of schedule. So that money is rolled back into the EDC revolving loan, and we have it available for other businesses. What we didn't have is a good way to market that and make people aware that this money was available to them. And I think that's where the Chamber Foundation came into, being able to help us market that and expand not only existing but new businesses in our community. And one of the things that we tend to forget about is some of that funding is also available to existing businesses that want to expand. And we forget to talk about that quite often, you know, and you know, we've had a lot of discussions. I've had discussions with the Chamber people. You know, we're always real big to announce and celebrate new businesses in our community, but we sometimes forget to recognize those of us that have been here a long time and continue to grow and continue to provide jobs. We forget sometimes to recognize those businesses, and I recently had a discussion about, you know, trying to figure out a way that we can recognize, you know, businesses in our community that have been in business here for 50, 75 years, you know, and there's a lot of them, but we forget to talk about those. We all talk about new businesses. We put out a business news magazine and it lists all the new DBAs and all the new businesses that are opened in our community. But we forget to recognize those businesses that are here every day, providing jobs and expanding jobs within our market. But to answer your question, nobody has to pay back this $490,000. If it's defaulted on, the revolving fund, loan fund will just become smaller. That's the way I understand it. Is that correct, Laura? That's correct. Pretty much?
Yeah, there is a fund, and there is the means for us to have a reserve for if anything did default. But again, it would be, you know, we would properly document everything to that point with that business and ask them on a quarterly basis to be providing information to us so that we would know that they wouldn't default, and that we would be helping them and connecting them with the right resources so that they, you know, that they were able to continue to grow. And so if that happens, HUD makes that final determination with the money that's in Grand Traverse County's current bank account right now that is sitting in account, not making any interest, just waiting for an opportunity to arise. They make that final determination of how to handle that loss.
Commissioner Maxwell.
Two things, two comments I have. One is Commissioner Wheelock mentioned seed money. I would be remiss if I did not mention that seed money, I don't care what you call it, it's taxpayer money. So that is one comment that I want to make. The other is that this is a public hearing where no board action is required.
Correct.
Right.
And we're just making commissioners' comments.
So that's my comment. Seed money is taxpayer money.
Okay, good. Commissioner Lathrop.
So this business, so we're going to loan this $400,000 to a doctor's office?
Mm-hmm.
And so any doctor's office could apply for this kind of?
Absolutely.
Really?
This program.
Oh, boy.
You want to expand?
Yeah, this program is specifically, if you read the national objective, it's for companies who are growing. We count the amount of money that we can loan to the business is based on one full-time employee equals a certain dollar amount. It's actually $35,000 per FTE. And so if you were to have a doctor's office that was planning on growing over the next 2 years, they would be able to apply for the program.
Very good.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate it. We will now move on to items removed from the consent calendar. The first
Probably
one.
should close the public hearing, Larry.
Yes, I already did.
You did.
Yeah, I closed it and then just brought it back to the board for comment. Sorry. It's okay. We will now move on to items removed from the consent calendar. First item is the receive and file A1 Resource Recovery Management Report pulled by Commissioner Rennie. You have the floor.
Susie Shipman, Resource Recovery Department of Grand Traverse County.
Thanks for being here. I pulled it because I saw you. I have a couple questions. Your household hazardous waste collection program this year, did you consider it a success, and how did it compare with last year as far as volume?
We have just had our fourth recently, so I don't have the final volumes, but it's up overall. So I'll be bringing that correct data to you in reports coming up, probably at the next meeting. Very successful as far as I understand them, but this is my first cycle of going through the collections. So as far as the collections themselves operating smoothly, everything operates extremely smoothly. Folks like Dean Bott show up with cookies for us sometimes, which is wonderful, and everyone is really appreciative. What I have noticed numbers-wise is it seems like we're getting donations a little more heavily this year, and I don't know if that's a testament to the folks that we have checking people in and their demeanor and enthusiasm, or the enthusiasm of everyone who's coming through, but it seems to be one of our most popular programs, and we really enjoy putting them on, and we feel it's a service that's highly appreciated and greatly needed. So I'm actually looking at some options for expanding that, so hopefully I'll be bringing that to you
Well, those are good words.
next 6 months.
I have many constituents that are very happy with how that works and the ease of which to get it through the system. They're not waiting and so forth. So I applaud it, and I wish we would do more of this sort of thing. I also had a question for you on the Governor Rick Snyder's residential recycling initiative. It is included in this report. Are you familiar with that?
The September 3rd status report, yes.
Yeah, okay. I have a question on your community pollution prevention grants for fiscal year 2015. In 14, these grants were more used to develop means of measuring and collecting data. 15 looks like it's going to be used more local for local recycling initiatives. Are we involved in any of those 15 grants, or do you plan to apply?
We're waiting to find out what the requirements are, what they're looking for this grant cycle. The 2014 grant cycle was very specific, and they had a keen eye for what they were after. And I think it's going to be interesting to see that data. That's going to get reported out very soon. They're accelerating, receipt of all these results from the work that's being done. So
I've yet to see what's happening for 2015. I don't think the door is shut necessarily on a community that is fairly successful with recycling initiatives, such as Grand Traverse County, but I'm definitely keeping an eye on it. And one of the good things about item 3 there in my report, the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, that's a regional grouping of area counties and folks that are in my position, essentially. And one of the members of the Governor's Recycling Council is in my advisory committee. So it's fantastic. I get the most updated information, and she's really honest about what's happening behind the scenes as much as she can be. So I will be keeping a keen eye on that to see if there's anything available.
Okay, as far as illegal dumping cleanup, can you give us a little resume of that and how you think that's going?
Sure. I actually, I'm on the agenda here to report on that. Would you like me to go ahead with that?
Sure.
Okay. I was called in to do a verbal report. I decided to bring along a little visual. I think it will help highlight some of the activities.
Yeah, you just go ahead and do that.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So I started my first slide. I just wanted to, for the public mostly, because I think the commissioners are very well aware of what our Ordinance 17 has to say, but mostly for the public to say where the county stands as far as illegal dumping and what our, what our requirements are in terms of enforcing it. Oh, thanks, Jim. So, for instance, dumping is unlawful, and the BOC is responsible for developing a system of enforcement response capable of addressing violations. And to me, that was my mandate going forward. That's part of my job. As far as the status report, on the right-hand side there, this is from cleanforests.org, and that is tracking that's done by the Michigan Department of Natural Resources. They receive reports on sites, and they publish this list. And it's generally sites on state and federal-owned lands, although it does include some county sites as they come up. And most of these sites are coming from conservation officers that are out in the field, also from the public. I think that there was probably some concern about the recent article that came out in the Ticker that lists Grand Traverse County as tops of this list. And there's a few reasons that we're topping the list. I think it's important to highlight those. We have a high proportion of state land compared to other counties. And we have conservation officers that are therefore out in the field, and they're actively reporting on these sites. We are also a population center, and we have a high level of outdoor recreation activities happening on the state and federal lands. So there's people out there that are making observations and reporting back. And our public lands are certainly just laced with access. So it's easy for folks to find out-of-the-way places at any time of the day if they feel that they can't properly dispose of their waste. Another item that was mentioned specifically in that Ticker article was the number was up to 45 sites. It's hard to read, but right now this July 7th report from Clean Forests lists us as 35 sites reported. The 45 takes into account an additional 10 sites that had been reported throughout this summer. So really we're up to 45, and actually given situations like I was out on Monday with the DNR person and we discovered 2 sites in one day, we're probably looking at more like 50 reported sites in the end. I wanted to show you something that the GIS department here at the county helped me out with. On the right there is basically the spreadsheet that map that the DNR puts out is based upon. So I can get that data directly and get my latitude and longitudes and go out and look at specific sites and chase them down. But I had GIS put a map together to show me where these clusters are, and it's really where public land is. That was very helpful of them.
Can you get this slide report to us when we get back to your office? That'd be great.
So this is all just common sense. What is commonly dumped? We've got our construction, demolition waste, abandoned auto parts and tires, appliances, furniture, yard waste, household trash. And I actually wanted to point out that There's some encouraging trends in that easily recycled items like concrete can go to Elmer's. So it doesn't seem like those things are being found as much. In my short history and asking lots of questions, I'm learning this, but certainly metals, where people can get money for metals now. So you just don't see metals out in the forest anymore. If they're dumped, they're snapped up right away by salvagers. And they're making money. So why does it happen? Obviously, people don't like any fees that might be associated. Takes time and effort sometimes to dispose of things properly. And people may not be aware of disposal options. Again, that's something that's my mandate, is to help create an awareness of just how easy it is, not only to recycle, but to deal with our waste, where we have such great systems in Grand Traverse County. And again, that availability of quiet, rural and accessible locations. So what is being done to clean up dump sites? I think it's really neat that Lisa Lita is here, because one of these photos comes from a cleanup out at Fife Lake that... Yes, well, I'm adding it to your report because...
Wow.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
7 mattresses in a hot tub.
And we cleared off, I think, 5 or 6 sites that were on our list, but we found 5 or 6 more. So,
And that's the way it goes. The picture there on the upper right is one of the sites that we found on Monday. After we finished cleaning up a site, we found that pile of mattresses and pads. So, and the site in the lower, sorry, I meant upper right. The lower right is a picture of a site that was basically at our southern county boundary, just north of the boundary on County Line Road and in Mayfield Township. And the DNR has finished cleaning up this massive site. I mean, we're talking 3 40-yard dumpsters today. So that one's clean, which is great.
Susie?
Yes.
How is this site, obviously, since it's been used heavily, how is this being monitored in the future?
That site in particular is actually one of the more interesting sites administratively. It's been sitting for a while because, and this was also mentioned in that Ticker article, I don't know if folks remember that detail if they read the article, but this was adjacent to a property, and in fact right on the property line of a fellow who's currently serving time. And they, at the DNR, because it's a boundary with state land, they were trying to establish whether they could have them be responsible for the cleanup. They're trying to establish even communication, and that was challenging. And finally, this summer, the DNR just decided we're going to go ahead with it, and they just did the cleanup. So it's probably something that will be monitored, because while there's no proof, you know, perhaps it is that same person who's responsible for the dumping. So I think this site in particular, it's also close to the DNR office, so it'll be monitored regularly. And the county site, and I'm going to show some photos coming up here, that was cleaned up on the 27th. That's a site that I'm going to go back to regularly, but access to the dumping location was really shut off by some deep furrowing. So things like that will obviously prevent, but if we start seeing problems at that property, I've already talked to administration a little bit about the possibility of a camera, because it is a pretty out-of-the-way location. So,
could we have some kind of report on a regular basis as to how these sites are being monitored?
Sure, yeah.
Having seen one of them, I don't want to see any more. And
Right.
You know, if we know where they're located and we're cleaning them up, if we're not coming back and taking a look at them after we've cleaned them up, what good does that do? So if we could just have some kind of report, and you know, obviously I don't want one tomorrow because I'm asking for it tonight, but if we could just be kept abreast.
Yeah, you bet.
Thank you.
I'm starting to dig into this a little more. I started in early July by meeting with the DNR, and you know, so that's another thing that I feel like is happening, is the partnerships are a little stronger. as of, the past few months. And I've gotten a sense from the DNR, it's really one staff person, and we're lucky now because she's local. And she handles all of this information for the entire state. So when I showed up in her office, she was pleased as punch to have some activity at the county level in terms of even just tracking down sites, ground truthing sites, because reports are coming in all the time. Cleanups happen that she may not hear about. And so when we went out the first time, we were trying to find sites, and in a lot of cases, you don't find a site because good citizens have come along and just said, this is awful, I'm cleaning this up, and there's not the follow-up there. But I think with the two of us on it, we'll do a lot more tracking, and I'm pretty interested in data, so I'd be happy to report on that. Any other questions, or can I? Yes?
Now, would you like to announce the clean up and green up thing Sunday, November 2nd? It kind of goes along with what you're talking about here.
Yeah, it sure does.
From 9 to 3, American Waste, 280 Hughes Drive. For more information, you go on www.cleanupgreenup.com.
Yeah.
I hope people out there listening, don't put it in the woods.
November 2nd.
That's daylight savings time.
That's correct. That's the day after,
November
as a matter of
2nd.
fact. Yeah, they said that in their memo.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yes.
Are you all set, Commissioner Rennie?
Yes, sir, I am.
Commissioner Wheelock?
Well, I think the thing, and I'm sure Susie's got more to talk about with the cleanups and more slides, but I think the one thing to remember is that this isn't new. We've been dealing with this as nearly as long as I can remember when we had a resource recovery department. Annually we get this list of sites and we go out and we try to find them. Oft-time we either don't find them or we find that they're on private property and we have no authority by which to go onto that private property and clean them up. But I know it's probably been 2 or 3 years ago, Bob and Kim and I spent all one weekend running around with pickup trucks picking up trash in various places. But this isn't new. This stuff has been being dumped in Hoosier Valley and other areas as long as I can remember. I think the key piece of this is the more we talk about it and the more we try to educate people about it and let people know we have all the Take It Back programs and things that Grand Traverse County through its cooperative businesses operate in our community. We have the Recycle Smart paper, we have the hotline. Anyone that has trash that they need to get rid of, we can help them get rid of it, and we can tell them where to take it. Don't take it out and dump it in the damn woods. Pick up the phone, call the recycle hotline, get online, look. We have places, there's very few items that someone can produce in their home that we cannot provide them a place to get rid of properly instead of dumping it on the ground.
And what's your phone number?
My phone number? Everybody's got my phone number,
All right, anything else on that report? Or we need a motion to...
I don't know if Susie
I've
wants
got
to...
a couple other slides if you wanted to
you got some slides.
listen
Okay,
to
as long
it.
as
Yeah.
we're doing both parts of her report.
There's the good news stuff at the end.
Okay.
And yes, that's absolutely true. It's whack-a-mole. As soon as you go out there and you clean up, like Lisa's group has done, you find more. But I think that just putting some resources on it, and I know I'm going to be putting some more of my efforts into working with the DNR on this, I think will be effective. So we'll see if we can't keep that list nice and low and manage it a little more effectively so we don't have 45 and 50 sites up on that map. So let's see here. Let me move forward. I do want to get some pictures out for the cleanup on the 27th. And this was just one cleanup that happened. I'm not sure if, Lisa, your group was out on the 27th, but I know there's been just kind of an effort. This date was set by the DNR, and their idea is to try and rally these groups, community groups, whether it's ATV groups or Scouts or the Boardman River Cleanup Group, which is where a number of these volunteers came from. We had 17 volunteers, and that included DNR staff, and included a Grand Traverse County Road Commission staff member, Grand Traverse County Road equipment. You see the front end loader loading into the dumpster there. That's Grand Traverse County Road Commission. So public thank you to Jim Cook and the staff at the Road Commission for stepping up very much in the nick of time with that equipment. This is an extremely challenging site. I've never seen anything like it. The article said it was the worst in the country. They actually meant county, but I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't country because it was awful. You can see it was treacherous, steep slope, and that 20-yard dumpster, which is packed to the limit, that was probably more like 40 yards, but Frank Hall of the Road Commission did such a nice job of packing it down that we got down to 20 yards, so that was a good day. That's my husband in the blue shirt. Long suffering.
All right.
But he enjoyed it. This was actually Monday. I wanted to throw this in for current DNR staff, resource recovery staff, combined effort. Ada Takas from the DNR and I went out just for a day. We're going to repeat again on the Monday coming up. And we cleaned up a small site. I wanted to show at least one picture of clean forest there. Came upon the shingle site, and the back of the truck there shows just what a small pile of shingles looks like when you actually lift every single shingle out. It really fluffs up into quite a large amount and takes some time. And the pickup truck showing the wood and the television there, that's an excellent point that Commissioner Wheelock made earlier. That television went down to Bay Area Recycling today, which is one of our Take It Back program organizations. So they took that for free because it was, you know, a cleanup item. So there's places to get rid of this material. I wanted to just pop back really quickly to the last part and go over this list. This is actually a current list. Obviously you can't read it, but there's 22 sites listed on there, and a few of those were cleaned up by the Fife Lake group, but it sounds like there might be a few more that get added in its place. When October 27th, or October 25th is a big cleanup of a conservation district site, and this is the first cleanup I'm going to lead because it's solidly on county land, so I'm working with the Conservation District and the Road Commission again. That's planned for the 25th, and we are looking for volunteers. It's going to be just a Saturday morning. It'll probably take 3 hours at the most if we have at least 10 people show up. So once that is done, then there's probably less than 10 sites that are going to be remaining on this list. So that's kind of my numbers update. There's another group, it's organized by Kevin Jefferson of All Automotive, and it's an ATV group, and they do what's called an onion run, and they plan on cleaning up the rest of the sites. So there's some really great community activities going on out there that I think should be commended. I'm just compiling data. It's those volunteers and folks out there that are really doing all the work. So.
Great report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Anything else? Commissioner Rennie?
I would make a motion to receive and file the Resource Recovery Manager's report.
Right, moved by Commissioner Rennie.
Support.
Seconded by Commissioner Wheelock. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes.
I have a
Thanks, Susie,
question.
that was a great job.
Yeah. Yes, Commissioner Lemko.
Yeah, you might want to think about a day of caring project in the future through United Way, and to be able to get teams to be able to come in and be able to know where these things are, and so they might be able to help to be able to pick that up too. So they're always looking for projects and trying to match different businesses with those projects, and I'm glad that you're seeing another business that's going to step up to the plate and be able to do that. So I think it's really important. And I just want to say thanks to the Road Commission and for you, Susie, and all the volunteers. I've been asked to sign a letter to thank all the volunteers, and as soon as I get it, I will be doing so, because I think it's really important to recognize when we have volunteers that are doing such a great job for a community. We could not afford to send out a hired person to be able to take care of these projects.
Right.
It has to be done by volunteers.
Right. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Yes.
I just want you to know 45 tires is what a Chevy short box pickup truck will hold with a cap on it.
Wow.
It'll hold 45 tires, 5 of them on rims, and I put all 45 in there. I'm
Wow.
just saying. So I just want to say I did adopt a trail cleanup for 10 years with my scout group with Grand Traverse Hiking Club. I have done Adopt a Highway. I'm on my 8th year now of Adopt a Highway on 131 in Fife Lake. And this is my first time doing the Clean Forest program. All I did was put sites on Facebook, on my personal Facebook page and on the village and on the chamber page, and people just went out and cleaned it up. We didn't organize a day. People didn't feel as much pressure if they didn't have to be there at a certain day at a certain time. So it's nice to have the day for those who want to get together, but all you have to do if you know there's a site is tell people or ask them, and there are tons of people that have their four-wheelers that want to go out there and get into it. And I know of a few more sites that we'll have to clean up in the spring, but the ferns were too tall. But I had no trouble getting people out there. 4 days. I put it over Labor Day. I posted on Thursday night at midnight or something like that on Labor Day weekend. And by Monday, the dumpster was full. So, and it rained most of that weekend, if you remember. So, it doesn't take that much, but that's all we have is our natural resources here. We have the most ORV and ATV trails of any place in the country, probably in the world. We, in Fife Lake, have this brand-new loop trail system of 21 miles that is unique because there aren't that many loop trails. So somebody has to take care of it. So I'm just saying that to add to that. And if you want to see these pictures, I'll send you.
All right, thank you. Okay, I believe that concludes that report. We will now move on to the Road Commission report. Commissioner Rennie, you have pulled that. You have the floor.
Jim Cook has the floor.
Okay.
Good evening, Jim Cook, Grand Traverse County Road Commission.
Evening, Jim. I'm still getting questions about Supply Road from District 7 residents. What's happening? I now you see that you hope to complete it by October 12th. Is that a good number or a good date?
Yeah, they've been paving this week, and they have about 3 more days of paving. Not sure that they're going to be out there tomorrow. Again, I don't think it's any secret to anybody. I think there's a shortage of resources, there's a shortage of labor, and there's a shortage of contractors. And so we're a little bit at the contractors' mercy in the fact that, we have contracts and they make commitments, and I'm pretty sure this is the 3rd time I've been in front of the RMA to say that Supply Road will be done in a couple of weeks if the weather holds out. So the weather hasn't been super great. We've had those occasional rains, which has really disrupted the contractor's schedule. But we did meet with them yesterday, and we do have a commitment that they will be done. Again, 3 more days of paving and a couple of days of shoulder work. So looking at the forecast, I think it looks pretty good for being done sometime next week.
Just off the cuff, when you have someone that does this work for you, a contractor or something, do you have performance clauses in those contracts?
We do.
With respect to dates and what those dates mean?
We do.
Are those in effect now, or what's happening with Supply Road?
We have liquidated damages and things like that. Again, we're working with the contractor right now to, our most important feat right now is just getting the projects done, and that includes Supply Road and Zimmerman. So they're on task, and again, I hope that we can get that done pretty quick.
A lot of happy people out there with your 14 project list that you completed, by the way. Had a lot of good response out of that. One other question I had for you, though, while you're up there. Explain this petition for abandonment stuff and how that could affect us going forward if we get more builds and more development.
Well, that's a project in Blair Township, and the name of the project is Stafford Meadows, and that project has been submitted a couple times to the Road Commission. It's been approved by the township, and basically at our last regularly scheduled board meeting, our board approved accepting the road as a public road, which is really the main. It's called Stafford Drive. It's a main road that comes through there off Rennie School Road, and it ties into an existing subdivision. And the petition is related to the existing subdivision, and the residents there have petitioned that we not allow that connection. And so we'll be working through that petition. There are reasons that you can decline connections like that, but they're generally related to public safety, health, and welfare. So we as the Road Commission, we accepted that future connection, years and years ago, as a future right-of-way and a future connection to a future development. So we do not have any concerns about public safety with that connection. So again, the residents have petitioned it. And it'll go through the petition process, and we'll see where it goes. But legally, right now, we've been advised that we can't really deny that connection.
I wondered what that was about. You had legal advice on that, I take that then?
Yes.
Okay. There was an article in the paper recently, and yesterday, as a matter of fact, and it talked about the first portion of the $650,000 in added state funding is to be distributed quarterly. Is that part of that original 450 thing we had heard? What is that 650?
No,
That's different money?
There was another bill introduced while everybody was sleeping, and it got approved. And while we were all complaining about, why don't you solve the road funding issue permanently, nobody really noticed, including the folks in Lansing. But lo and behold, there was a bill that was approved, and so they allocated, I want to say it's about $144 million to be distributed through the MTF formula. It's a one-time influx of dollars to, again, keep moving forward with fixing our roads. And so, we're pretty fortunate in Grand Traverse County. We received $652,000, and we got confirmation on that. And we'll receive our first quarterly payment in November, and then we'll receive them quarterly after that. So it's a good thing for us. Again, we had $600,000 or so in emergency fixes with failed culverts and failed pavements around the county this year.
Yeah, you're also quoted kind of as saying you're pretty optimistic about next year's road commission budget.
Yeah, I'm actually very optimistic, and that may be my nature, but from a financial standpoint, we look pretty darn good. And we had a work session yesterday, and we're within, I think, $98,000 of a zero budget balance. And again, that's really actually pretty good, because we have about $8.6 million in projects planned for next year. That's almost double what our asset management plan says we're going to dedicate to projects. Again, we have some equipment purchases and things like that. So, it looks really good. And then again, we always rebalance in April after the first part of winter. So I think we're in really good shape.
That's a great increase from this year's $5 to $6 million. You're talking $8 to $9 million in 2015. It's great to hear that.
We apologize ahead of time for all the construction in orange barrels.
Okay, all set? Or more?
Go ahead if someone has a question.
Commissioner Lunkel.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks for McCray Hill Road. I drove up today and noticed that it was done. The only comment I will make is I would hope that somebody would stop in and see the two people that have driveways that now have a 6-inch hump going into their driveway. And I don't know if we can do something with it. I understand why. It's diverting water so it doesn't go onto their property coming down that road. But I think a good offense would be just to be able to make a contact with a couple of those people that live on that road and make sure they're okay with that hump that's going in.
Yeah, we'll make sure and talk with them, but that's probably going to get redone. There's a problem with that.
Yeah.
And the road's supposed to crown, and it actually is just tilted one direction. So
right.
The contractor made a decision that may not have been the best decision, so they are going to be reworking that.
So, appreciate it. Thank you.
Commissioner Wheelock.
I guess the comments that I would make, and we all hear all the complaints about the construction, the orange barrels and the delays. I had a truck going to Bel Air this afternoon that was tied up for about an hour and 20 minutes between going up and coming back, so it's just the way it works. But there was a comment on the radio the other morning, which I heard, and I certainly would repeat, is that, no matter how many times we complain, the fact is we gave them the money and they're fixing our roads.
Yep.
And for that, we say thank you.
Yep.
Oh, thank you.
Anyone else? I've got one item.
Go ahead. If you want. Go ahead. I just want to know if he wanted to go over his fall road tour.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we just wanted to make sure, definitely the commissioners, any elected officials, any potential officials that might be coming aboard after the first of the year. We just want to make sure that everybody knows on October 22nd we'll be having a road tour. We'll split the county up in half. We'll be doing the western half of the county in the morning, and we have a bus. We'll put you on the bus. We'll take you, we have a route planned, and we'll show you all the projects that we've completed this year on that side of the county, and then we'll also talk about any thoughts other people have on projects we ought to be considering, as well as some staff recommendations on projects that we'd like to do. And then in the afternoon, after lunch, anybody that was there in the morning is more than welcome to get on the bus again and take the afternoon tour, which will be the eastern side of the county. And it'll be done by 4 o'clock, and I think it's a great opportunity just for people to see, especially with the millage funding and all the complaints you might have heard. It really is, we're chipping away, and I think it's a real positive thing.
Thanks. Commissioner Maxbauer.
I just want to note that Commissioner Dave Taylor is sitting in the audience, and without his leadership, and I know he spearheaded this, without his leadership, and I appreciate this, Dave, our roads would not be being fixed today. You stood by yourself for a long time. Thank you.
Jim, do you know when you will have a schedule? I talked to Deb earlier today in regard to your tour on that morning of the 22nd. She called me because when we looked at calendars, I have a conflict that morning because we have a land bank meeting. So I'm hoping to catch up after the land bank meeting. If you can, have her email me a schedule of where you're going. I'm hoping to catch up.
All right.
I just have one item that, just so the audience knows that I spoke with Jim previous to the meeting. There are folks that have contacted me regarding the condition of residents that live on Baggs Road in Whitewater Township, and I understand that road is kind of an unusual road where the boundaries of Grand Traverse and Kalkaska County meet, and that there's some sort of agreement in terms of responsibility for maintenance and repair of that road. And the concern that I expressed to the manager was that the road is in horrible condition, and the residents are extremely frustrated that they've tried to convey some sense of urgency to get that road in repair, and the difficulty in working through the maze of two counties that sort of share responsibility in the maintenance and who's going to fix it and who isn't, and those kinds of things. And so I told the residents that I would bring the question up, and if you could make a remark about Baggs Road and maybe talk a little bit about where we're at with it, and if there is a solution to repairing that road, what would they be, and how could we approach it?
Okay. Maybe just a little refresher, because I may have talked about this before, but anytime that we have a county, what I call a county line road, and any road that is shared between two counties, there's usually some type of maintenance agreement. And the reason is you sort of get into this position where people are pointing fingers at each other. You were supposed to plow the road, and then the road doesn't get plowed. So, and it doesn't really make sense to cut the road down the center of the road, because we're going to plow our half, and then the other county is going to plow their half. So generally what happens is there's an agreement in place, which we have on Baggs Road, and basically on the eastern side of the county, Grand Traverse County is responsible for the southern half of that county line road, and Kalkaska County is responsible for the northern half of that county line road, and Baggs Road happens to be part of that county line road. So based on that agreement, it basically says Kalkaska County is going to receive funding, MTF funding, to maintain the road. And the agreements always say something to the effect that if there's going to be reconstruction of the road, a serious project on the road, then the two counties will sit down and come to an agreement on how, what the fix will be and how they will distribute the cost or share the cost. So we've actually, before Commissioner Mauser came on board, we had met with Kalkaska County under with their previous manager, and this was almost 2 years ago. And so we were working probably for about 3 or 4 months in the direction of doing some type of a partnership project. And we had also discussed the project with Whitewater Township, as well as Whitewater Township was discussing it with Clearwater Township. And then we also went kind of a step further. Even though we were outside of our jurisdiction, we weren't getting a lot of help from Kalkaska at the time, and in fact, they were without a manager for a while. So we kind of took the lead, and we put some estimates together and some options together to do a project on that road. And then Kalkaska hired a manager, and we discussed it a couple times with the manager, and the manager basically, it was not a priority road for the county. And so I've been in communication, off and on again, probably over the past year, with the supervisor of Whitewater Township. And our position really is, hey, if you can bring this thing together, we can't really take the lead. It's outside of our jurisdiction. But if you can get Kalkaska to come to the table, and Whitewater and Clearwater Township, the road commission, Grand Traverse County Road Commission, would be more than happy to sit down and work through a partnership to come up with a project for that road. So I can't remember what the estimate, we had a couple options and some estimates, but it's a fairly expensive project. I mean, when you look at the traffic and the number of residents, but again, I think if you split the cost 4 ways or however that works out, it's a reasonable project. So and I know there's frustration because we have residents who live in Grand Traverse County who can't understand why we're not fixing the road, but
Right.
that's the reason.
I'm just wondering if, could we take possibly the initiative to organize a meeting, perhaps at the school or Mill Creek or at Whitewater Township, to just set a date and see if we can invite members of Kalkaska and Clearwater and Whitewater?
Yeah, we can do that.
Try to initiate that in the residents and see if we can come up with bringing everyone together and hashing this thing out? I mean, it seems to me that'd be the only way we're going to get this thing to a head.
Yeah, no, I agree. And actually, the supervisor of Whitewater Township has been taking the lead, and I'm,
Right.
So he keeps talking about it, but, it hasn't come together. So I will get with him and
Okay.
and we'll see if we can bring something together.
That'd be great. Thank you. Anyone else? Commissioner Rennie.
Motion to receive and file the Road Commission monthly report.
Moved by Rennie, second by
Support.
Commissioner Wheelock. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming, Jim. Appreciate it. All right, that takes care of items removed from the consent calendar. We already did the resource recovery dump site presentation. We will now move on to human resources, health insurance for 2015. Jen, you have the floor.
Thank you. Jen Seaman, Human Resources Director. This is our health insurance for 2015. We, in compliance with Public Act 106, we must send out bids every 3 years. We actually do it every year, but this year was the full-blown bid process, and bids were sent on behalf of Grand Traverse County through our agent, Brown & Brown. We received bids from Priority Health, Blue Cross Blue Shield, BCN. Actually, Mesa was contacted and Health Plus were contacted, but they declined to quote as well as Blue Cross Blue Shield. The lowest bids were received from Priority Health and BCN, which are detailed below. BCN's was a tad bit lower, and when I talk a tad bit, it's $1. Where is that?
It's $1.16 for the single.
Thank you.
Rate.
It's $1.
$2.79 for the double, and $3.48 for the family.
Yes,
rate.
yes.
And percentage-wise, it's 0.3% difference. For those of you who were here when we had BCN, we had a lot of issues with their product. Service, provider coverage, we actually had quite a lot of issues. And with Priority Health this year has been great. We have not had half as many, not nearly as many, I should even say, issues with Priority Health, which is why we are recommending to stay with Priority Health. Our benefits agent has also provided me with a letter, if you would like it, stating that they recommend that we stay with Priority Health as well for those exact reasons, the coverage and the providers in this area.
And I would like to interject maybe one other item under consideration, and that is the tremendous amount of time and effort and strain on you, your staff, and all the employees. Converting over insurance from one provider to another is huge. And for a matter of $1 or whatever, it is not worth the effort to disrupt the whole county and everyone's lives and the families that have to go through this conversion process. It just isn't worth it. Commissioner Rennie.
I had a question for you, Jen. How does this compare with 2014 numbers on a percentile basis?
Close to 17% more.
Increase of 17%?
Correct.
Okay, now are these insurance plans for the half or so employees that we renegotiated health care coverage last year? Or are these the employees that will be looking at that in negotiations this year?
It's the employees that changed last year.
Okay, thanks.
It's the same plan that will be negotiated this year, so it's the new plan.
But they
These
are
rates.
17% higher than last year.
Correct.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lemko.
Motion to approve to go to Priority Health, continue with Priority Health for our health plan for our employees.
Support. Moved by Commissioner Lemko, second by Commissioner Thomas, to agree to renew our current health insurance plans with Priority Health for the active employees and early retirees effective January 1, 2015. Discussion, Commissioner Lemko.
Yeah, the only question I had is they talked about early retirees.
Yep.
As to being, they would be eligible for this. And in our budget thing, we were talking about not doing a cost share for retiree benefits.
Two different groups, Herb. The early retirees are pre-65. The other group is the Medicare retirees, which is 65 and over. So the early retirees are actually a separate division of the active employee group.
Okay. Okay.
So that's what this is for. Next week, I will be bringing you the Medicare eligible retiree plan.
Okay.
And that's the one where the county board currently has $100,000 of funding that you supplement
Right.
For that.
That's the Medicare wrap, right?
That's for the Medicare, yes.
Okay, all right. Any other discussion on the motion?
I just don't know how long any employer, the county or any of the rest of us, can possibly continue to absorb
Right.
10, 12, 15, 17% increases in health insurance annually.
Yeah.
You know, we're all in the same boat.
It's unsustainable.
It is. And walking into this room, and I'm glad Commissioner Rennie has brought up the question of, the percent of increase and the previous year's increase. I mean, if this is a continuation trend, I mean, if we spend, I don't know how much we spend total on healthcare, 4.5 million. I don't remember the number. It was a while ago. Dean would be able to help me with that.
4.6, yeah.
4.6 million. And if you average 20% or 15%, 20% of there's $900,000. There's your ongoing deficit.
Year after year.
Funding year after year, and will never end. You're going to have a budget deficit going forward every year in the amount we're looking at in our budget, and that's healthcare. It's crazy.
Certainly not within our control.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions on the motion?
Well, to a certain extent it is, but we'll get into that later.
It is, actually.
Comments or questions on the motion? Do you need immediate approval?
Sure.
Does the motion maker in a second agree with that?
Yep.
All right, roll call vote, please.
Thomas?
Yep.
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am.
Lemkool?
Yep.
Max Bauer?
Yes.
Lathrop?
Yeah.
Rennie?
Yes.
Inman?
Yes, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Moving on to administration, Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee, page 17. I believe that is an update. Who wants to take that as an item? You want to take that, Dean?
I can make a few brief comments,
Okay.
but I think Chris has provided the update indicating who the court representation is. You've got quite a few county employees, as she's explained in the first paragraph. The city commission will be identifying their representative. I think they did that a few days ago. We have identified some of the attorneys who will who have been interested or who are interested, and I think Commissioners Wheelock, Lathrop, and Lemkool will be working with Chris Kramer to make those final selections. So
Okay.
Dave has spoken with the NIC regarding a facilitator, and as he mentioned in his budget narrative, we have not identified funding for that yet at this point. But
All right. Okay. Commissioner Lathrop.
Yeah, so we also have to pick a person from the community as well as the attorneys, is that true?
correct.
Okay. And then, do you have any idea who the NIC person is that David's talking with?
I do not, but I know he's been in contact with them.
Okay.
I believe in conversation I had with David, I think NIC is recommending Jim Robertson, who was here and did the jail tour and stuff here a couple months ago.
Okay.
Dennis Lieber had been here previously, and I kind of wondered if Dennis would come back. But the discussion that I had with David is that he thinks it's going to be Jim Robertson.
All right. Well,
But I don't know if we've got an actual quote yet as to what that dollar amount will be.
okay.
And, you know, that's going to depend on what we do too.
Any one of those guys were really cool. Yeah.
All right.
They're all uniquely qualified.
Yep.
Any other questions on that update? All right, we'll move on. Dean, we have the recommended summary budget on your desk, and I know you wanted to make a couple remarks on that, and I believe, I don't know if you wanted to put this on the Ways and Means when Dave gets back.
Yes, that's our plan. Since we
Okay.
have only
Okay.
provided this to you today, this afternoon, actually probably most of you are seeing this for the first time this evening. Our plan is to discuss this with you in more detail at Ways and Means. Dave is he's out sick. An email was sent around, but we have he has probably, you know, the comment that I would make is that the letter of transmittal defines the overall situation. He is going through, and based on the meetings that we had with several of the departments and the elected officials, he has identified the main issues and some of the budget issues that they face in terms of maybe staffing needs, but also funding needs in the areas of document imaging. Those are addressed in this as well. But he has identified the key areas that I think as the commission, you know, that you need to concentrate on. Basically, when you get into the reports that are provided in terms of the budget summary, you have the standard reports that you've received in the past. It's a summary based on your main operating fund, the general fund. This is a current services budget. So basically, we're taking the current approved staffing plans, we're costing out those positions and recommending at this point in time that you will continue to operate those current services and programs that you are. This is a recommended budget. You obviously will have much discussion next week regarding, you know, what you may or may not do. He has outlined some other things that could change things, you know, relatively soon. And one of those would be whether or not we're successful with our surcharge, the 911 that's on the ballot, increasing that funding, which is November 4th. But he has also identified in the narrative issues that are not addressed in the budget in terms of there's been discussion regarding, the classification study that has been talked about. Depending on how that, the bids were just received. We have not had a chance to evaluate those, but the letter of transmittal is where I would start with your review of what's being presented. Between now and Ways and Means next week, I am here. I would, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to give me a call or to give Dave a call. We know we are getting this to you very late. And the only defense that I would say to that is it was only last week that we made a decision as to who we were going to go with on, health insurance. We had to press Blue Cross Blue Shield for a rate, and they declined to provide us with a quote for our health insurance. So at that point, we knew that we had health insurance numbers that we could, rely on, and we had built in an increase in the budget that came pretty close to what they quoted. So with that, I will entertain any questions you might have at this point, but...
I just have one item, if you could bring back at Ways and Means to the best of your ability. There was a discussion at the last meeting regarding the status of whether we have or have not spent the carryover fund balance that was put into the budget for operating costs for 2014. And if that has been used or utilized and at what amount. And I know there was some discussion about, we weren't quite sure that we had spent that. I don't know if you've gotten into that yet, because that's a key issue. If we've not spent it, then that's a key issue to let us know that we're lowering our expenses in 2014, which would be reflective in 2015. But
yes, you had asked for us to see if we could determine what our use of fund balance might be in 2014 with 9 months behind us. Dave does address that also in his letter of transmittal. We're anticipating that we will not use the full amount that's budgeted, but I will bring that back. I'm not sure we'll have that in the packet, but we will definitely provide that to you at Ways and Means.
okay. All right, discussion. Commissioner Maxbauer.
I know it's your favorite task, Dean. When might I see my 5-inch thick budget book?
That's a good question.
Thank you.
It's a matter of printing it out, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm just
I can
saying
tell
when.
you this, Commissioner Maxbauer, if you drop by tomorrow morning, I probably won't have that done.
Okay.
Next week.
Okay.
Will I have it in time to look at it before Ways and Means? And when I say look at it before Ways and Means, preferably not an hour before Ways and Means. Because I'm not going to be prepared to discuss anything unless I have my budget book and I can compare. Because I have, for those of you who care, I have many years of budget books, and I do look back department by department by department, and things jump out at me, questions jump out at me. So will I have that in time?
Yes, you will. You will have that.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Lundquist.
Yeah, Mike, last week I had asked that whether or not we could put on our agenda for next week the employee compensation and benefits study, and also whether or not we could bring forward the retiree benefit bonding. And I'm thinking that rather than asking for the bonding, that we just look at the retiree or the wage and salary survey.
The classification
study.
Okay.
I'd like to bring that on, just that portion on, but also I'd like to know whether or not, if we got too full of an agenda, if we would better off to have a separate meeting just to discuss the budgets.
It's not a bad idea.
Just to, we can do that next week. We can look at the budgets. If there's more questions that we can ask, then we can maybe look at setting up another budget hearing to be able to talk about that in the future.
Good idea.
So if we Sonny, if you could add
Yeah, I have
classification
not-
plan for Ways and
I
Means?
have not seen the draft agenda for Ways and Means for next week yet.
Okay.
I usually will approve that on Thursday morning. I don't have it yet.
Okay.
I spoke with Chris this morning, I think, and she didn't have it ready. She was trying to deal with getting recommended budget summaries to you and some other issues, and with David out of the office, and we do know that our administrative staff is down one person besides, so she kind of had a full plate also. So I would expect that by noon tomorrow, I'll see the draft Ways and Means agenda, and I will see to it that the salary compensation study is at least on the agenda for discussion for next week.
All right, great.
Yep.
All right, anything else? Okay, we'll move on to the administrator's report, and that was sent out email, and
Yep,
I
thank
guess
you.
we didn't get a
Was?
hard copy yet. You have some?
I have a couple.
Does anybody want one right now?
I'd like one sometime.
Yeah, okay. Why don't you pass, for those that want one, grab one. It's been emailed out
Yes.
to everyone.
I have mine.
You got yours?
We have a couple more.
And when Dave gets back for Ways and Means, we can ask any questions on the administrator's report. Okay, that takes us to unfinished business. There's none. New business, there is none. Second public comment. Does any member of the public wish to speak at this time? Lisa.
I just like to get my bang for my buck on my gas mileage, but I realized as I was sitting here listening that I did forget in my previous speed report,
Yes.
I didn't thank you all for all the support that you've given to us in various ways, because many of you have supported us in various ways. I would also like to thank a lot of the staff here that have been very patient with me in my learning curve of things. Chris Kramer came to mind, and John Slake, who is here, who has answered a ton of planning questions for me, because I'm not very well versed in planning, so I'm learning. But I would also like to thank the Drain Commissioner, Kevin McEllier, because if he hadn't told me that I could apply for that SAW grant, I would not have known I could apply. So, so there's many people here that are sitting in the room, and there are people, the prosecutor's office, Chris has helped me with a lot of things. So I just want to say thank you for all the things that you guys have done to support us. And the Road Commission, rock on.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Any other public comment? Seeing no other public comment, we will close the second public comment. Commissioner committee reports. Commissioner Wheelock.
Well, it's not necessarily a committee report, but I would mention that I spoke on your behalf at the MSU Extension 100-year celebration last week. I talked a little bit last week about with the research we had discovered that the enabling legislation that created MSU Extension was signed into law in 1914, and the first agricultural extension agent was assigned to Grand Traverse County in 1917. So we've been at it a while. It was fairly well attended. There was probably 50 people there. Senator George McManus, former Senator George McManus, spoke before me. And George is always a little elegant about the way he speaks, which we all know. We can't forget that George was Grand Traverse County's extension agent for almost 20 years. So he had a lot of history to talk about, and it was in George's normal tone. It was a little interesting to hear. So, but it was well attended. It was very well received. And again, we passed a resolution last week recognizing that, and I hope that we can see that gets delivered to them, because it was not available for me to deliver on Tuesday or Thursday when I was there. So, but again, it was very well attended, and again, I congratulate MSU Extension on their partnership with Grand Traverse County.
Good. Any other? Commissioner Max Bauer.
I attended the Area Agency on Aging meeting, and I'm pleased to report that Bob Schluter has, he had his performance evaluation. He got glowing reviews, not only for his expertise, but his communication skills between his board, the Commission on Aging Board, pretty much every other board. Bob is a communication nut, but I have to tell you, it serves the seniors of Grand Traverse County and Northwest Michigan extraordinarily well. And his contract was unanimously approved for asking him to continue for another year. And I think that's it.
Great. Commissioner Lathrop.
Beta Bus is going to have a couple of public hearings on the new routing they're doing, and I think that'll be available, the information on that will be available on their website. Thank you, Commissioner Lemko, for reminding me of that.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Commissioner Lemko.
Yeah, the Planning Commission is having its regular meeting coming up on, we have to have them in by the 23rd, so
Yeah,
if you're going to go to that meeting, get your checks in to reserve your space for the awards for the Planning Commission.
Awards banquet, actually.
Yeah, it's an awards banquet, yeah. So I think that's in November that it's coming up, so make sure your checks are in for that.
Thanks for that reminder. I got to get that in. Anyone else? Commissioner Rennie.
Did go to the Pugsley Quarterly meeting last week. Very interesting meeting. They're still running around 1,330 daily inmate count out there. Their capacity is 1,344. Interesting stats. 442 out of the 1,324 in custody that day were mental health treatment people. That's a full 1/3 of their population out there. Causing a lot of havoc. Another interesting number, 80% of inmates in total are on meds at Pugsley Correctional. 80%.
Wow.
I can also tell you assaults are up, incidents are up, taser incidents are up, etc. So it's a very, very rough situation out there. And it has to do with the level of inmate that is being incarcerated there now. It's a much rougher individual. And a lot of concern out there from the warden as well as some of the staff. Other than that, I would like to again talk about the Clean Up, Green Up event Sunday, November 4th, 9 a.m. to 3. That's held at American Waste, 280 Hughes Drive in Traverse City. You can go on the internet to find out more information, www.cleanupgreenup.com. I think that segues, Sonny likes that word, into this other stuff we've been hearing about dump sites and so forth, and our household hazardous waste events that have been successful. So I hope everyone that has something to toss out, and they'll take a lot of stuff, like a washing machine or something like that, if you get it there, would take advantage of this program. It's paid for. We might as well take advantage of it. Thanks.
Yes, and I appreciate you making that second announcement, because, you know, during that slide presentation, I just can't believe people go out and throw that kind of trash out in the woods.
I think if people had the opportunity and were aware that they could dispose of this stuff properly and safely for little or no cost to them, I think we'd have more compliance that way. I think we should push it more and more all the time.
I agree. Let's get the message out and get it cleaned up.
And I don't know what the Guinness Book record is for tires in the back of a 4x4, Lisa, but I'm sure you're in the running.
I know I'm in the running for how many old presidents that have 45 tires in the back.
I'm sure you are.
We used to pack that many people in the back end of or inside a Volkswagen.
That was only college. Okay, any other commissioner reports? Seeing none, notices and announcements? Sort of done that already. Anyone else? All right, we don't have a closed session. Is that correct, Dean?
That's correct.
All right, so we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Or do you have something?
I had one other question.
Yes, Commissioner Rennie.
Dave's not here, and so I'm going to have to throw it on you. We got a memo from him talking about Senator Walker on House Bill 5097. And in that, it says that has been approved by the legislature, House and Senate.
Oh, that was the one he didn't vote for?
This has to do with negotiating and where it puts the county in the respect to what we thought we were and what we're going to go forward with very shortly. I'd like to know how Wayne Schmidt voted on that. Does anyone know?
I don't know. We can find that out.
I'd like to know.
Go online. You can go online to State of Michigan and it'll pop up what their voting record is.
Yeah, but you'd have to have what the House bill number was in order to
put the House bill number in it.
I don't know what the House bill number was.
I'd sort of like to know, like,
Dave provided
public
that,
know
so
what
we can
that
look
is,
it up.
okay?
You had the House bill number?
5097.
Well, that's the Senate bill number.
Well, it says HB in his memo, so you can discuss that with Howard. That's up to you.
Yeah.
One other memo that came through from NACO on this Waters of the U.S.
Okay.
And there's a comment period till 11/14 as to this new proposed legislation from the EPA. And they're asking for county proclamations and so forth in support or against. I think our county should do something along that line. This is real interesting stuff that could have huge impacts going forward with respect to who controls and how we control our water. Right into drainage ditches. Could have a huge impact on the county. I don't know if Dave would do that normally, Larry, or...
Is that issue, I know that there was an issue, and then I'll call on Commissioner Maxwell. I know that there was a previous issue in the legislature, which I don't know if I necessarily agreed with, is that they passed some legislation that for agricultural land, that those permitting for any kind of water uses would be not seen by the DEQ, but by the federal agency. And that just, I guess in my mind, complicates the whole governmental regulated process for the farmer. If you have any faith that the DEQ is doing their job and doing it properly, but if they're trying to expand on that for all water uses, is that what you're saying?
It's an incredible
It's like,
document if you read what the EPA has in mind.
What are we doing? Okay, Commissioner Maxbauer.
I wanted to, thank you, Commissioner Rennie, for mentioning NACO. I was checking my email this morning, and I received an email from NACO asking if I wanted to participate in a live teleconference with the President of the United States regarding Ebola and what he's doing about it. I have to tell you, the first half an hour was the President. He was 4 minutes late, but I'll give him that, for his teleconference. But it was a half an hour of him reading a statement, his Health and Human Services Director reading a statement, Homeland Security reading a statement, half an hour. Then the Q&A started. Well, the first 15 minutes of Q&A were governors calling in, thanking him for his leadership. And the two mayors that called in, one was from Niagara Falls, New York, which I'm going to guess, being New York, is probably leaning towards the liberal side. The other one was from New Orleans, which I'm going to guess is probably leaning towards the right. In any event, they asked what the United States was doing to control our exposure to this virus. And the answer was they are taking people's temperatures as they get off of airplanes. I kid you not. I have never heard, this was supposed to be an opportunity for county commissioners through NACO to ask questions. No opportunity at all. Governors, obviously, the governors that called in got in. Mayors of cities that are affected got in. People that were, it was, I have to tell you. Well, you can hear my exasperation.
I didn't waste my time.
I can't wait for you to attend the next NACO conference.
Let me tell you, they're going to hear from me.
Yes, thank you. Commissioner Lathrop.
How were they taking the temperatures?
Homeland Security, he didn't
Just
say
wondering.
how. He didn't say how.
They're using a temporal thing,
But they're installing these things in the airports. Only in major airports.
International airport.
Internet, thank you.
Okay.
That was the answer.
Who's next? Dean.
Just to add to Commissioner Maxbauer's
Jump on in.
comments, I spoke with Wendy True probably about 5 o'clock. She actually participated in that conference call today, and I asked her to include that in her next report to Dave. But yeah, so I know that she would have been very much, I want to say this, she would have expressed our concerns over that, and I have complete
Had I gotten
faith.
through, I would have, but
But she did participate in that
Good.
conference call today. She was invited to participate
I
in
was
that,
al-
and you'll
I
hear
was
or
also,
see
for
more about that
whatever
when
that's
she
worth.
provides the details to Dave in her report.
Commissioner Rennie?
Just as a side note to that Ebola thing, that gentleman in Dallas did pass away.
yes, and there were some people from Texas.
Now, getting back to what you said, the statement that came out of the government was that gentleman was critical but stable, if you can imagine that. Now, doctor, you're going to have to tell me what that means.
That means you're going to die.
Thank you.
Oh, boy.
All right, any other comments before we adjourn? All right, we need do we have a motion yet for adjournment?
I made the motion, it
Who
wasn't
seconded?
seconded.
All right, do we have a second?
Vicki, you want a
Second by Rennie. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you.
Yep. Unbelievable.
You've not heard anything like this in your entire life.
Oh. See you. Yeah.